Email, that is a huge issue. And that can be a HIPAA violation because you're sending emails to an Outlook, an AOL, a Gmail. And what has to happen is it goes from your email address to the Gmails of servers of the world. And then from their server, it goes to the recipient's server. And if it's not sent encrypted and it contains protected health information, the patient's name, their birth date, social security number, diagnosis, x-rays, anything that there's a whole list of things that fall under protected health information. So if any of those things are sent in an unencrypted email, your office could be liable. You know, we're all putting out on Facebook pages and social media pictures of our patients. Yeah, as long as you don't have the eyes or the full face or all of that kind of stuff. You know, you're putting it on your personal Facebook page. Oh yeah, I had this patient out there today. Not a good thing, you know? You got to watch what you're putting out on social media because it could come back. You don't know who's looking at that.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists. This is episode number 167. My name is Andrew.
And my name's Michelle. Welcome back, as always. I'm always impressed with anybody who's going to listen to a dental hygiene podcast.
Well, I mean, if you're going to listen to one, I mean, come on. We're doing okay.
Why not us?
I want to start off the show by shout-outs.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there was another thread about what are some good podcasts, not dental podcasts, but what are good podcasts to listen to. And our buddy, Daniel Lopez, who I swear never actually listens to the podcast, we were the only one that he's like, if you're going to do dentistry, A Tale of Two Hygienists. It was almost like a slap in the face. Like, if you're going to do dentistry at all, you know, I guess why not?
I love that we don't have to explain what a podcast is as much.
It's been nice.
Oh, it was hard times in the beginning, y'all. It was.
So I think that one, I can't remember what forum that one is. It might have been Dental Hygiene Network again, or it might have been Dental Hygiene Professionals. There were a lot of different types of podcasts out there. And real quick, shout out to Lori Gerard, our friend Josie Sewell, and Elizabeth Fox for also in the hundreds of comments mentioning us also for the dental ones. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about, like, we haven't talked about this in a bit. Like, what podcasts are you actually listening to that you recommend that are maybe non-dental?
Oh, so I am really into, I mean, we've talked about motivational interviewing on the podcast before. I just had a course that I created and gave at Towney and Western Society at Perio that was titled That's Not What I Learned in School, where we kind of looked at the reason that we sometimes double down and don't make changes. Mm-hmm. And so psychology, I don't know if I put this on the podcast, but I put myself into cognitive behavior therapy, seeing a counselor that's kind of doing CBT, because I kept listening to these podcasts, one of them being The Living Experiment, who is actually on hiatus right now. So that's a bummer, but they have a ton for you to catch up on. But they made a really good comment of like why we have such a negative or a stigma on therapy. Like no one would look down upon somebody that went to a physical therapist or even a trainer and a nutritionist. And if you try to get like your body in good health, like no one would look at that. And we don't realize that mind-body connection a lot of times and how, I mean, Lord knows our parents screwed us all up. So we got some things that we got to work through. And I've really just learned a lot about myself and how I projected a lot of my patient. And I'm really excited to actually like work through that and then tell others. So there's one of these podcasts out there called You're Not So Smart. And it's all about like the backfire effect and cognitive biases and cognitive dissonance and all those like nerdy psychotherapy terms. And I am just loving it. And then I always like an NPR. I'm like Sam Sanders. I'd nerd out on Sam Sanders all the time with It's Been a Minute.
When are you going to have fun in life? Because that sounds like between the podcast and
fun
work.
For me. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. Oh, we can't. Okay. So right now I don't travel nearly as much as I used to. I did the first day of like overtime outside of my office in probably like 4 or 5 months. So if you all remember from like a long time ago, I used to travel all the time in crazy work weeks. And so I stopped listening to a lot of the extra podcasts. Now I'm just down to Conan O'Brien has a new one. It's Conan Needs a Friend. And it's really fun. It has all your comedian friends on there. It's just everyone that you like is going to be on there. Dax Shepard is on there. And I haven't listened to Dax.
Oh, I love Armchair Expert.
I haven't listened to it very much. They're long formats, so it takes a lot to get there. If I had plenty of travel time, Bert Kreischer has a podcast too I'd probably listen to. Very inappropriate, that one. But Conan is okay. Freakonomics is on my list. My Brother and Me is on my list. That's also maybe not the most appropriate one. I also have The Startup and Without Fail, which are both Gimlet podcasts. The Podcast Report, which we both listen to. And I finally got caught up on those ones. And then Libsyn, who does our hosting for the podcast, has it's called The Feed, keeping you podcasting. So I listened to that one. And then it's just us and Dental Hacks right now on my dental feed. So...
Well, Dax Shepard, Armchair Expert, just had one out with Chelsea Handler. It was so good. So good. And she talked about she's been in therapy now and just like the gym for the mind. I was like, yes, so true. Oh, yeah, that's a good question because we haven't talked about that in a while.
No, but I do have one more thing before we start talking about real podcast, learning stuff. You and I had a conversation and I said, hey, I don't want to listen to any more of what you're saying. Stop talking. Because I want this to be recorded. The stupidity of you.
I forget what it was about.
Oh, I know exactly what it was about. It was about parking tickets. So to preface the story, Michelle's meeting with someone that we're going to start hopefully working with for social media. And she's mentioned something like, oh, I got a parking ticket, but I threw it away or I didn't pay attention or I threw it out, whatever you said. And I'm like, wait, you got to pay that thing. She's like, no, I don't. Tell me about that.
I don't. So I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, one of the number one tourist places the last 7 years. It's so bad. I maybe 5 years ago started, when you're from a place, right? You have your little places to park, right? The little secret spots that no one else has really discovered, especially in somewhere like downtown Charleston where parking is it's like gold. It's literally gold if you find one. So I started getting these stupid tickets in my go-to parking areas. And so they were really cracking down. I even got a parking ticket in downtown Charleston in someone's driveway. And that was the final straw for me. I was like, screw you, Charleston. Screw the man. I'm not paying any of these. So I just wait till the boot gets on my car and then I go handle it every 2 years and call it a day.
Okay. So the boot, okay. So they put a boot on your car wherever it's at, and then you decide to pay it?
Yeah, because then I got to go. I mean, it's a whole process. I do it I'm not helping myself in any way. It's just my way of sticking it to the man. I got some psychological issues. Again, I'm in therapy. I'm working through it. But this is me sticking it to the man. I'm not wasting my time on a $14 ticket for one. And this was 1 minute. I want to cuss so bad, but 1 minute. So for $14, I'm like, screw you. So that thing just goes right into the trash can. And I'll see you in a year when I'm back parking downtown and got another ticket and you put a boot in my car.
Wow. Well, I guess you did leave out the part that it was only $14. That's not really that big of a deal. I can't even believe they waste their time with a $14 ticket.
Oh, they will nickel and dime you here. So it makes me angry. I'm a local. I should have the ability to park wherever I want for however. I know it doesn't work that way, but that's how it used to be. And I have this little mindset. I hate the tourists and they're taking all my parking spots. And so I'm going to stick it to the man and not pay my parking ticket. So
Well, good on you, buddy.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There'll be a time when you're going to be like, we're supposed to be podcasting. I'm like, I got to go to this thing and I got to get the boot taken off my car. And then I got to Uber back to my car because now I got to get into it. It's a process. It's so stupid. It takes me like an hour, but I can go like 2 years usually.
You do you until it starts affecting the podcast, and then we'll have some more words about that. Sound good?
Will do, sir. Will do.
Awesome. Well, I know you guys didn't sit around to listen to us yammer about her getting the boot on her car.
Or maybe you did, and now you've got a little glimpse into our ridiculous lives.
If you did, then you can turn the rest of the episode off, but you'll be missing something really good. We have Ann Marie DePalma back on the show again. And this time we're going to be talking a little bit more. We talk about HIPAA type stuff, but it's a lot of security and compliance in the dental office again. Some really good things. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
It's time for the interview.
Oh, but I had something else to say.
We need to let the experts talk now.
Fine.
So we are at Yankee, and again, you're a repeat. I love that you're a repeat.
Thank you for having me again. Yay.
Ann Marie DePalma. And we have tried to do this a few times, but, circumstances happen. But we're excited that you are joining us again.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
Doing great.
Awesome.
It's been a busy few days here at Yankee, but it's been great.
Yeah.
So.
And it's freezing, but this is your world.
Yeah, it's Boston
It's
in January and early February. It's supposed to be cold,
It's supposed to be cold, I know.
but not this cold.
Oh, God, because this is like ridiculous.
Right.
Right?
We don't appreciate this one.
No,
No, not at all.
but at least there's no snow. So that's good.
That's
is that
true.
better? Hold on. Is that really better? Because I feel like when it snows, I mean, I haven't been in Boston for like the snowstorms, but I feel like it's at least 30, 25 degrees somewhere in there, not like negative 25.
True. But
So.
you have to drive in it and walk in it. And
You guys have a
it's
good train
not-
system here. It's
Yeah, that's
fine.
true.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to talk about, because you are in the technology realm, like you are a trainer for Patterson, correct? For
Correct.
EagleSoft. And you kind of just really understand the, I don't want to say nuances of HIPAA with it, because they're a big deal. But sometimes like we are like, oh, it's just
HIPAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
No big
you
deal.
can't get that feeling, right? So let's talk about that. Hi. So can we say hi? Actually, you're going to hear this podcast.
Hi.
This is Ann Marie.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Oh, I'm going to hug you. Hug you. I'm
Here,
sorry.
I'll let you finish that hug.
Yeah.
I know. You're so good. I'm so sorry we didn't get to see you, and we've been like hit or miss the whole time. So Ann Marie is teaching us about the HIPAA side of life when it comes to electronics, like our electronic.
Using your software,
Yeah.
following some HIPAA guidelines as you're practicing. What can you do? What can't you do? All of those kinds of things. Knowing the basics of whatever software you're using, how that falls under HIPAA, and where, some things could be lacking in your practice. I go into so many different practices, and I see that people often have log in under everyone's one login.
Oh,
Not good.
and you're still practicing?
I am still practicing.
Is this happening for you?
It is a little bit. I do notice a few things that we could definitely improve on. So I think what you're doing is really important. I mean, definitely a lot of people need to know more about.
Right. We think it's just that, names on the sheet when you walk in, but it's so much more now that we're in the electronic age.
Exactly.
Because we evolved from like the whole like scratch through the name when they sign in, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that the charts don't have, like they're not in a room with the patient.
Right.
And the technology is fun. I love it.
Right.
But it can get you in trouble.
It can get you in big trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fines and moving, other things. But
Right.
yeah, you were going to
Well,
say something?
in our office, we actually have like a TV set in front of the patient. So we have to be careful because sometimes when we minimize in and out of the chart or whatever x-rays, it can show the schedule. So that's another thing we have to be really conscious of.
Right.
Which is hard. Sometimes you're rushing. You're trying to see this
in the real world of hygiene. You're constantly moving, and you've just got to be aware. Right. You know, there's something called an incidental exposure versus a true exposure that could open up issues within the practice for HIPAA. Right. But an incidental exposure is something that you tried to prevent, but it just happened. So you're sitting there, you're using your computer, you're bringing up the schedule. You can position yourself so that you're not showing the schedule, or depending upon your software, there's certain things in various software that can allow you to hide names or to go somewhere else, you know, and not let the patient see it. But if you have that screen up with all of the patient's information in it, that's when there's a problem.
Absolutely.
So in that instance, that would be an incidental.
That would be more of an incidental. And she can position herself. Right. So you're kind of blocking.
Right. It mirrors onto the screen. So you have to, that's the issue. So sometimes you forget and you're just clicking around. So that would be an incidental. Yeah.
So what does that look like as far as fines?
Can be something from a few $100s to thousands of dollars
for the incidental.
No, not for the incidental.
Okay.
Incidental is it's
an accident.
It's just happened.
They're like, you're human beings. We get it.
Yeah.
Right. Like it happens. Okay. Well, that's actually, I feel relieved in hearing that because Lord knows
make a mistake.
Right. It's not like
but
purpose.
If you're, if someone saw someone's name, or you're talking to a friend and they say, oh yeah, this person came into our office and that kind of stuff, that would be that's a real true problem for your practice. So
you're being a little malicious in that way. I mean, maybe not malicious, but gossipy, which could be malicious
too,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't want to take all of your time.
Thank you.
Do you feel like this? I mean, you could
this
say
is so cool.
Forget Andrew. Yeah.
This is
but
awesome.
I want you to be able to be like, I need to go. I got
things to do. I love this.
Oh,
this is so cool.
Good.
Love it.
So, okay, let's talk about email.
Email, that is a huge issue, and that can be a HIPAA violation because you're sending emails to an Outlook, an AOL, a Gmail, and what has to happen is it goes from your email address to the Gmails of servers of the world, and then from their server it goes to the recipient's server. And if it's not sent encrypted and it contains protected health information, the patient's name, their birth date, social security number, diagnosis, x-rays, anything that there's a whole list of things that fall under protected health information. So if any of those things are sent in an unencrypted email, your office could be liable.
Wow.
So
is it just from sending it, or like when it actually something happens, like it goes to the wrong email address or whatever that looks like?
Right. If it goes to the proper recipient, you're okay. You know, but you still shouldn't be doing it unencrypted.
You're kind of gambling.
You're gambling. Right.
It's
okay.
liability.
So just as if you're going to buy something on Amazon or Zappos or wherever you're buying something online, when you send your credit card information, it's encrypted. And what encryption does is it messes up your information. And the only way it can be unlocked is through a key at Amazon, so that they will look at it and say, okay, this is your credit card number. We can go through it. With unencrypted email and protected health information, if it's just sent out there, who knows?
Yeah.
Anywhere along the line, it could be hacked.
Absolutely.
So you're taking that gamble. So it's always best whenever you're doing sending anything that has protected health information in it, that you have it encrypted. And there are a number of different ways of doing that.
How? Like, I'm sure a lot of offices are going to be like, I send emails all the time. I get emails all the time. Like, how do they make sure they're doing encryption? How do they choose the best? I mean, is that
there are several services out there that encrypt emails. They're associated with either dental companies or medical companies that do this regularly. or your IT. And a lot of offices, and we recommend that you have a professional person as an IT, not the doctor's nephew's son, and who's
Are the newbie hygienist is good at social media?
right, exactly, something like that. Who handles all of your computer and your hardware and knows about encryption and how that works, and then work with that person and your internet service provider and your email provider to encrypt it. So there's a couple of different ways that you can look at it, but as long as it's encrypted, and that's the main thing, and that's what they look at.
Okay. What other areas are we seeing offices? I don't want to say fail, but kind of fail.
Yeah, lacking. We'll say
lacking. Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the things I said about everybody logging in under the same password, you need to have security that's based on your particular position. So we're hygiene, we need to have clinical positions or in clinical security. The business team, the practice management side of the office, needs to have something different than what the clinical side would do. So your software and your logins need to allow you to do that.
Right.
And that protects it. So I've been involved in practices where there's been some questionable activity that's occurred in those practices, and it was because they had access to things that they may not should have had
Access to, like within the software?
within the software.
Because the password allowed them access to everything.
Correct.
This is so important. I feel like there are plenty of offices that are lacking with it. I had no idea about a bunch of the stuff you're saying. So yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
That's why we have the podcast, right?
Hey,
Great.
you learn so much.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Where else how would you guide an office if they were like, we need to, I feel like email's obvious, right?
Right.
Where else is it, like even instant messaging in an office? Because my question is like hacking. Who can hack in a dental office?
Anybody can hack into your office. And that's a good point, because a lot of offices have open networks.
Oh yeah.
The networks in their practices are on they're giving their patients in the reception area and the operatories the ability to log in on their phones or, tablets or whatever.
Home access.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay. So it's recommended that you have two separate networks, one that's on for your practice management software, and then a separate guest network, because there are some savvy people that come to your practice, and if you're on the same network, could figure it out.
Wow.
That's so scary, actually.
Right.
It's really okay. So where else? Like, I feel like you just guide us. Like, if you walked into our practice and they were like, you're like, okay, email's obvious, or is that not the obvious?
That is the obvious.
Is that the obvious?
Yeah.
And then what would be like your next?
Having the security, making sure that everyone is where they need to be.
There's a new software that we actually just started using in our office. It's called Blue Notes. I'm not sure.
Yes, it's communication.
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't have to go to the front or go and try to find.
Is that like an
dentist.
instant message?
It's instant messaging.
So
Okay.
I feel like that could also.
No, that's within the practice, and it's you're talking to me as you're in the business office. I'm in hygiene. You're talking to me. That's fine. Okay.
But so our Blue Notes does pop up on the screen. So it's like if we have
right.
the TV is on in front of the patient, they can see that.
Right. So you might want to tweak it a little bit and say, instead of saying Susie Jones is here, say your next patient is here.
Absolutely. Makes sense. It does record like time, like how long it takes us to seat the patient.
Oh,
As well
okay.
as how long it takes for the doctor to come in. It tracks stuff like that, but I don't think it saves anything.
Is there any issues with that third party? Because that's a good point.
They have to sign as part of HIPAA. So there's several components to HIPAA in general. What a lot of insurance information and things like that in general. But in the 1990s, when HIPAA really took off and it got really enforced, there was a portion of the law that allowed outside third parties to come in and view your information and look at it. But in order for them to do it, you have to have something called a business associate agreement signed. So me as a trainer going into an office, I'm under my company's business agreement. So that covers me. But if you have someone like we were just talking about Blue Note, they need to have an agreement. Someone who comes in and may have access to any of that protected health information, they have to have some sort of business associate agreement. If they don't, then there could be a HIPAA violation.
On who?
On the practice.
On the practice.
On the practice.
So you have, if you're hiring or you got to download a third party software or something, like you need to make sure that you're the one getting all those business agreements and documents,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be on the third party for not doing it.
No, it may, I don't know exact legal side, but they should be
ultimately
able to,
it's on the practice,
right?
Yeah.
If there was a problem, because it's the practice's protected health information, it's their patients. There are a number of softwares out there that allow communication beyond the practice that you're in. So you're referring offices, specialists, whatever you're using. So those are really great because they're using encrypted sources to allow you to communicate between the different practices and get all the information, whether that be the diagnosis, the x-rays, the patient's insurance information, so you can get some of that through these companies that provide these services, and there are several out there.
What are the violations that you've seen? Have you seen any?
More so, like we were talking about the security and, not understanding their software and how their software can actually help them protect their patients' information. So people just don't know what they don't know. And unless you have someone in there who's actually understanding the software and what it can do and can't do as far as HIPAA.
I have a question.
Please.
That's kind of tangential to what we're talking about ish. So it's one of the forms that the patient signs when they come in. In addition to our HIPAA form, there's a patient financial responsibility form. And within that form, it talks about we are going to release information to the insurance company and bill under your blah, blah, blah. So hypothetically, if we had a patient that opted not to sign that form, and basically what I'm understanding that form to say is like, I'm giving you consent to go to the insurance.
Electronic, because most people, most practices now are sending their claims electronically. This is part of what I was explaining about in the 1990s. That whole HIPAA rule was reinforced, and it was reinforced to allow for electronic claim submission. There's various, and off the top of my head, I don't remember all of the various aspects of the HIPAA law, so to speak, but it involved insurance claims. So allowing the patient to sign that, for the patient to sign that form, it's saying the practice can send their information, their protected health information, to the insurance company via electronic. If the patient says no, that they're not going to sign it, then either the practice has to decide, okay, we're going to do a paper claim form, but just think about that. You're sending it through the mail.
Right.
Yeah.
We never really even thought of that before.
I know.
Okay. So then the practice has to decide, okay, we're going to do it, still send it through the mail, or patient becomes responsible for it. You pay us, and
Then you deal with it.
Right, you deal with it. So
Is there anything in that says that it has to be sent encrypted?
I don't know.
I think that would be really
But what happens
interesting.
is most of your electronic claims go through a clearinghouse. And when you're working with that clearinghouse, that's where the encryption comes in. You're sending it from your software to the clearinghouse in whatever form it is. And
What is a
then-
clearinghouse?
So what happens is a clearinghouse is a company that takes all of your claims from your Deltas, your Blue Crosses, and all of that. Make sure that information is in the boxes that it should be, that there's that protected health information, their birthday, their subscriber ID number, all of that information is in the boxes. It doesn't necessarily know that the information is correct. Okay. And then they send it to the individual insurance companies.
I never even knew that existed. Let's talk about maybe like daily practices with technology. So where could we fumble?
Most practices are surviving in their software. They're not using it. They're just going from day to day to day and just getting it. They don't understand it. Most softwares, they're only using a very small portion of what technology can provide to both improve the practice's profitability and ensure that the patient is getting what they need. So it's important for everyone, whether that be the business team member or a clinical team member, hygiene assistant, to understand what their software can do. And any technology, whether that be a CAD CAM, an X-ray, or the practice management software.
Why do you think that is that they don't? Is it because there's not a trainer that comes, or maybe there's because God knows the pushback when you went from paperless to so? Did you ever? Were you in that experience?
Yep.
Yeah. Like the arguments I would have with the front desk. Like, I have to click 4 things. I'm like, you had to get up the chair 4 times. So how is this click any worse? But it was that fight. So they wouldn't adopt that software as much.
Right. And that's where the problems come in, because they think it's going to take longer to do something. But just like when you're learning dental hygiene, it took you longer in the beginning to learn how to scale and to polish.
Yeah.
Anything takes longer in the beginning, but once you get it, you can just run with it. The whole steps of learning and the being unconsciously competent. You know, you get in a car and sometimes you just drive to work and you don't know how you got there, but you got there. You know, so it's the same type of thing. It's learning. It's the whole learning curve. But the practices are so busy that they just don't take the time to learn. When I don't practice clinically anymore, I still have my license, but I don't practice clinically. But when I was practicing clinically, I was in an office that I was there 1 day a week. And it was a totally digital practice, digital x-rays, digital charting, and all of that. And at the time, I hadn't been exposed to all of that. I had come from a practice that was still using film. And so here, just go. Here's your full day of training. Here, you're seeing all of these patients today. Here, just go. This is what our software, go. And I fumbled. Oh, I could take a good PA, bite wing, all of that. But because I didn't know how that software worked, I don't even want to think about the undiagnostic x-rays that I took while I was there.
Yeah. And I'm the same way with when you jump, because I was always used to Gentrix and I'm now in EagleSoft. Our school used, I think, Dental Docs. Like if you're jumping around and maybe you aren't technologically inclined, it's just a little scary and you kind of shy away from it a little bit. I'm curious about tablets. How does that fall in? Is there any issues with that? Because we fought that for a while with like signing things, just in the transition of it, you know, like when we were trying to go paperless and before there were stylus pens and all that jazz. But that was quite the issue. And even my dermatologist one time had me sign, she would like read me half-ass, I'm going to say, and that's full on, no bleeping. It was half-ass. She like read me these things and she's like, all right, now sign. I was just like signing blank on this little like pen.
You didn't know what you were signing.
Right. Exactly. And so in the moment I was like so young, I was like, that didn't feel right. So what, are we seeing any issues with tablets?
Depending on your software.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes things get shrunken on a tablet because it's a smaller screen. You can't read it. Or an exact situation like what you had that you're just signing away. You have no idea what you're signing because you can't read it. You know, not so much for younger patients, but for older patients, they need to see it in larger print, you know, so it can be an issue. But it also can be an issue in terms of the networking within your office. So there's a lot of different areas that come into play with how successful that's going to be. And I'm interested to listen to you say paperless because there's a huge misconception as to what is paperless and what is chartless. I just recently had a family member in a large Boston hospital area, and the amount of paper now, hospitals, medical facilities are paperless, but yet
you get a lot of paper.
There was a lot of paper that went through that as a patient we saw.
Do you mean like the intake forms were paper or like the post-op stuff was paper? What are you talking about?
In terms of the hospital, yes, they put all of their information about the patient was in the computer, but then they had other forms that they had the patient physically signing or reading or looking at. Dentistry, we're a little bit behind, to say the least, in where medicine is as far as in the electronic world. We're getting there, but it's slow. So a practice has to decide what they want to be. Do they want to be paperless, which everything is electronic? You're communicating with your patients electronically, and there are a number of ways of doing that. Or do you still want to have the paper? Do you still want to get paper EOBs, for example? Or do you want those to come electronically? So the practice has to decide where they want to be. Do they want to be paperless, no paper generated, or whatever is shredded? Or do they want to be chartless, where they're using the software to the fullest in terms of charting, in terms of intake forms, in terms of all of that, but they still may have some paper. So they might have a smaller patient folder, so to speak, than they would if they were still a paper chart. So there's a lot of different things that come into play with that. Sometimes some offices say, oh yeah, I want to be completely paperless. I've worked with offices that, they're completely paperless. They will do everything electronically. Even the paper that they get in, they'll still get paper EOBs from the insurance companies. They'll input that, they'll scan it into whatever document area the software has, and then shred it after a period of time.
Okay. Would that be paperless?
That would be more of a paperless.
Okay. All right.
They're still getting some, but they may have charts. You know, they still may...
Or even older charts.
Charts, right.
Because you're kind of this combo.
And a lot of times when an office wants to go chartless or paperless, they say, oh, we have to scan in everything. Not necessarily.
No.
Every office does it differently.
Yeah.
Some offices say, nope, we're not scanning anything in. Other offices say, yeah, we're going to scan every single piece of paper into the software. Others say, nope, we're just going to do one or two important things. Okay. Now, every state is different. Here in Massachusetts, you have to keep the charts for 7 years. Okay. So whether that be electronic or paper, as long as you have that record of that patient.
What would you do? Would you be chartless or paperless?
So I think I would be chartless. Well, and here's why I think, and maybe you can help me maybe get my brain around why I shouldn't do this, but I think that there's still enough of a population out there that still likes to have their post-op instructions written down that they can put on the fridge to remember when to take the meds and this and that and the other. I think that there's still a vast amount of my maybe older patients that would like that. At the same time, I have a hard time trusting that someone's going to open up an email that I sent to them that has attached post-op instructions or consents or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. But would that still be considered paper? Okay.
No, that's chartless. What he's talking about is chartless.
Chartless, right? Yeah, because, so if you all right, so if it's post-op instructions, if we can take that scenario,
Yeah.
and I am, let's say, chartless. No, let's say paperless, because I feel like we were a paperless office for a really long time. And I text, email, whatever, the information, and I print, because they were like, just because my husband's going to he's not going to have that email, he'll take care of me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What category would that fall into?
Chartless.
Chartless.
Yeah. Because you still have some.
You're
paper
still doing paper.
at some point
So,
in there.
right.
Okay.
Even the hospital
So if
is
you're printing
chartless.
out, if you're printing out and handing to them from their chart, that's considered chartless.
If you're generating
That's interesting.
paper,
Yeah.
you're not paperless.
So generating paper in your office, but what if the patient got home and then printed it out? Then you're still
That's up to them, right?
That's up to them. If you're sending everything
where the paper is being generated from.
if you're sending everything electronically,
Yeah.
you're sending post-op instructions,
Yeah.
text messaging, reminding them about their appointments, all of that. That's paperless practice. Okay. Very few.
So there's not that many of those.
Right.
I wonder how many people are. What would you call a combo? Well, I guess it can.
It's
chartless,
just
then.
it's
chartless, no
chartless.
matter what.
Yeah.
It's either chartless with paper
Yeah.
or no paper.
I would love to be paperless.
What-
Like, why do you need it?
Well, I feel like, again, it goes back to what are you trying
Yeah.
to achieve? And in our offices, the health of the patient. Well, I know everyone says that, but I mean, like, that we have financial incentive to get our patients healthy.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we are going to give them everything that they need. And one of those tools is going to be, this is your diagnoses for perio and caries. This is our treatment plan for that. These are the things that you need for all that, all written into a piece of paper that they can have that's customized for them. And then there's also QR codes on there that, should they want to scan it and just have it on there, again, still chartless, not paperless, but
Does that QR code have a
choose.
password for the patient?
No, because it's generic information.
Okay.
Generic information.
Not that
based
protected
on-
health information that can directly relate me to that information.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't give
And
them access
procedure.
to their information specifically, it just gives them access to our treatment philosophy and where they fall in that treatment philosophy. And then they can kind of deduce where, based on those diagnoses, what they need to do further. So
I wonder if there's like research to show where the cutoff is, because if anybody tries to give me paper, I'm like, nope, it will get lost. I'm going to lose it.
yeah.
You just text it, email it. Let me take a picture of it, because it's just not going to make it past 45 minutes out of my hands. So I wonder what maybe it's just your nature, your human
It's a
nature.
personality thing.
Yeah,
Your personality. Yeah. And
But,
the younger.
but millennials, I was going to say,
Right,
like,
the
what-
younger-
I hate using that term these days, but
They're the millennials.
But they're the millennials, and they're the younger folks that are so used to. Did you hear my Boston accent on that one? I was like the younger folks.
I love Boston.
No,
Not close
No,
enough.
Damn
park
it.
my car.
There.
I was asking for coffee earlier.
No.
No, was that's Long Island?
That's what, yeah. Coffee.
Damn it! I'm trying to
We-
perfect the
we
accents
tried.
everywhere I go. How does text message fall into this?
Again, when you're dealing with an outside company, you'd have that business associate agreement, and they would be able to look at your information and send it to the patient. So you want it to be, if there's no protected health information, you're just saying, you have an appointment, but you're not saying you have an appointment for scaling and root planing.
Right.
Okay, that's okay. Same thing, you go to your medical doctor. They say to you, they call and they'll leave a message. We've had some sort of test. I'm just following up on, can you give me a call regarding your test?
Results or something
Right.
like that.
They
Yeah.
don't give
Okay.
you specifics. As long as there's no specifics. Think about, we used to mail postcards for reminders for patients. You didn't necessarily put you're due for your cleaning. Not that I like the word
I
cleaning.
say that's what I saw a lot, actually, is you're due for a cleaning.
Right.
I feel like that's breaking all sorts of things. You can't tell my neighbors that I'm due for a cleaning.
Right. But that's
Protect me.
the
Come on.
Yeah.
that's the way it was. That's
So yeah.
previously. Okay.
For sure.
Now, in
gonna
the
make a lot of
electronic
those.
world, we're really watching that protected health information.
So it's so funny because I feel like for a long time we were like, technology, it's so dangerous. You never know who's going to get a hold of it and who's going to get the wrong email. But the reality is, like, your postcard could have gone in your neighbor's mailbox.
Right.
And we didn't even think twice about that.
Right. Because it was a
Stolen by
totally
kids.
right.
Those youths.
Those youths with their pumpkins throwing into the mailboxes.
The youths.
Those bad people.
There are.
No.
They're terrible. And then they grow up to be a...
How did we get so grumpy on the youths all of a sudden? We were the youths not very long ago.
Well, we never really thought about it back then. It wasn't important.
Yeah.
You know, everyone did it. You know, like, this is the way of the world.
We're so
Now with
flippant about
technology and the laws behind technology, that's where it is. A lot of it stems from, and not to be political one way or the other, but the Affordable Care Act. And in order to get that through, there was something called the HITAC Act.
Ooh.
And the HITAC Act actually tightened up all of this stuff where HIPAA becomes part of it. So, you know, over the last, 10, 15 years, whatever it's been, that it's really taken hold. And this is why we've become more aware of it. But people are still thinking, oh, we can do that. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. But it can be. You know, a patient had a bad experience in your office and they see or hear something that they shouldn't. They can put in a complaint. Do you know who the HIPAA police are?
I feel like we were told last time we did a HIPAA episode and I already forgot who it is.
Wait for it.
I think it's my local police department. That's who it is.
No, wait for it. Oh my God.
The Vancouver
The
PD.
acronyms at this point
Are gone.
they're,
The Office of Health and Human Services of the federal government.
Why didn't you know that?
And the Office of Civil Rights.
Office of Civil Rights. That's what I was
Yep.
working
That's
with.
OCR.
OCR.
That's not what she was thinking.
It's, you don't know.
You don't
You
know.
don't
me.
know. Okay, can I touch on this then? Yelp reviews or Google reviews or Reddit or something like that. When the patient puts their stuff out there, or how can you respond? It's like if they initiate it, can you respond to that?
So are you asking specifically like,
Because I wrote
Mrs.
about
Jones comes in and says like, yeah, like I had a really horrible appointment with Dr. So-and-so and they didn't do this and they should have done that. But now you are Dr. So-and-so and you want to respond?
Like, how do you respond to that?
Without breaking confidentiality?
Yeah.
Just
Because you're confirming basically that they are a patient at that point, which is against the law, right? If you're responding to them?
That's such a
you're
gray
saying
area.
that that they're in the patient population, but you're not specifically saying what their situation, unless the patient put it out there. And there's all sorts of rules and regulations that I'm not even, I'm not a certified HIPAA person. So I don't know all of the ins and outs of how that all goes. But if the practice says, okay, sorry, Mrs. Jones, we had a bad experience. We'd like to discuss it further
You're
with
more
you.
touching the customer service side of it, not so much the patient treatment side of it.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the same thing, this brought up a great opportunity to say that, we're all putting out on Facebook pages and social media pictures of our patients. Okay. As long as you don't have the eyes or the full face or all of that kind of stuff, you're putting it on your personal Facebook page. Oh yeah, I had this patient out there today. Not a good thing, you got to watch what you're putting out on social media.
Yeah.
Because it could come back.
Yes.
You don't know who's looking at that.
Well, we had Noelle Kelsch on talking about social media side of it. And I'm just baffled by, you put into a forum, let's say a dental hygiene forum, a shot. And this is the typical one. Let me just set the scene for you. The hygienist or assistant or somebody walks by and they're seeing you with the patient laid back at the back of their head, their whole body. They're like with their phone in the air, right? Like, just imagine that.
Right.
Like, and your comments like, seriously, put your phone down. It's time for the dental visit, whatever.
Be polite. We're
Yeah,
tired of
right.
this crap.
But you take a shot of like the room, right? They're red shoes, and their red shoes are an identifier, and you put in a forum of 20,000 hygienists, and you got one that's like in your area. I'm just like, I know that guy. He always wears red shoes. Like, and you take a screenshot of it, and you're like, hey, Andrew, saw you were wearing red shoes in the dental office today.
Put that phone down, friend.
Put that phone down. And then
That's
things
why
get real for you.
That's why we say not to have cell phones in the operatories or, in the areas, because you don't know, you could, in that instance, when someone's walking by, you could have had the camera in the wrong angle and you caught that person walking by.
Bounced off the mirror behind the patient that you were supposed to take a picture of.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So these are all things that we have to be aware of.
Because technology can be such a blessing for us.
Right.
But we have to just be smart. And I think sometimes we're a little too flippant about it.
Yeah.
We take it for granted.
And I think one of the things that hygienists believe is that if you are in a all hygienist forum or
You're
group,
safe.
you're safe because it's all hygienists. But I even just saw something on one of the bigger forums complaining about one of the California dental hygienist pages where someone said, well, I'm thinking about becoming a hygienist, and everyone thought that they were a hygienist already. There's no vetting process.
No.
There's no way.
No.
Except for my Washington State one. I look up their license on the website before that.
Are you doing the vetting process?
I am,
God help
actually.
them.
There's 500 members, and I've had to vet every single one of them. Anyways, or actually, that's not true because there's students in there too.
But I think we just have to be smart about our technology and our phones. And I think that, so I used to get fussy with my practice because there were like no phones at all anywhere. And in the moment, I was like, that's not going to happen because I have things that are happening in my life or whatever. And okay, so I'm not going to say I'm not the oldest, but I've been in dentistry since I was 17. I remember like my mom like calling and be like on the phone and then them calling back to the back office, like, Michelle, you have a phone call. And like that interruption, going to pick up the phone, like, yeah, Mom, I got it. I'm coming home. Whatever. Then like it transitioning into having your cell phone with you, right? And the buzzing and it be in your pocket. Now we have smartphones and we have all these things. And when my employer said, we're not doing phones in the office anymore,
It's
my
hard.
question for her was like, would you rather him or her or whoever call and me have that? To me, it was more like the interruption. I want you working every second of it wasn't the technology of it being in the room. So when I use my technology or cell phone, it's when there's not a patient in the room, it's to like quickly look through and like, none of this is important. I don't have to deal with it. Put it away. But I see a lot of hygienists that are like taking videos and doing these things. And I'm like, how do you have time for this? Like, how do you have time for the
I have
cell phone?
45 minutes or an hour for a patient. I'm supposed to be working. I should be working.
You should be working.
And this is where the office policy comes in and how the doctor feels about technology and what is, a good time. A lot of offices, say, let's leave them in the staff lounge and, do whatever.
And you go back there and you check it. It just can't be in the operatory.
Right. If you're expecting a family issue, then okay.
Yes,
but
then bring it in. But other than that. Well, this is all very enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if people want to see any of your courses or know anything or contact you if they have questions, what's a good place for that?
My email, Ann Marie RDH, AMRDH at AOL.com.
At AOL.com. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you, guys.
A
I'm glad we finally were able to do it.
I am too. We all need a reminder of this. So this is great.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
So I know you guys also loved that little interjection with our friend, the Prophy Goddess, LaToya. She jumped in. That was so fun. We were trying to meet up the whole time we were there, and it just happened to be while we were on a podcast. So thanks, LaToya, for doing that. And follow her on Instagram, Prophy Goddess. I did want to take a quick second because I was at Western Society of Perio, where I got to speak and be amongst a lot of my dental friends and mentors. And one of them is Tracy Butler. And she had, if you haven't taken a course from her or listened to the podcast, go back and do that and take a course with her. She is the educator with Strawman, and she had some really, like a nugget. I get so many nuggets from her every time I listen. But one of the things, and it kind of always brings me back to why we started the podcast, was she talked about a few things. And one of the things that stuck with me was the eye cannot see what the mind doesn't know. And man, if that doesn't sum up airway for me right now, I don't know what it, like I'm a constant, you heard Julia Worrell on the podcast. I'm constantly calling her after I see patients. I'm like, okay, so they had this. What would that be? So thank you for letting me harass you, Julia. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that really sums up where I am from a cognitive behavior therapy standpoint. Really trying to change that perception and perspective and my projection on others. Projecting, I'm always jumping to conclusions before I have any evidence to support it, which we are all guilty of. And you've called me out on it a few times.
I have.
Women naturally.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, as long as it's deserved.
It was.
As long as that's where we're going with this.
It was.
Okay, then yes, I totally did that. You're welcome, world.
For sure. Because I think girls sometimes have that weird vibe like, oh, I wonder if she was mad at me. And you're like, shut up. Like, she probably just rolled out of bed. And I'm like, oh, you're probably right. I probably needed to shut up about that. So I'm really appreciating that. So thank you, Tracy, for always giving little nuggets. And congratulations to our friend Cherie Lipinski from MouthMate and her new deal with NEOS and working with that two-handed approach for home care. It was just a fun time.
We have so many awesome, amazing friends that are doing so many good things. And hopefully we'll get, both of them back on the podcast again and share all the new things that they're working on and share some more.
Oh, I love that.
Where are we going to be?
So we got some cool things coming up. It kind of hurts my heart a little bit to be booking a flight while I'm on a flight back home, but these are pretty cool because we're going to ADHA in June. We'll be at RDH Under One Roof in June,
end of July, beginning of August. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. No, because there's a whole month in between June and August.
There is.
Yes, there's a whole month. And then we're going to Australia for the International Federation of Dental Hygiene, right?
Yeah. Dental hygienists.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Hygienist. Okay. So very cool stuff.
Yeah. In fact, we just booked our tickets today. I posted about it in one of the groups. I said, hey, we got this screaming deal. Round trip from LA, blah, blah. And then they looked and it was gone already. So we'll try and like post on like our personal things and hopefully maybe on our Facebook page when the deals come up. If you guys wanted to sign up, there's a lot of different companies that do emailers. We use Scott's Cheap Flights. And what is the other one that you've used before for discount tickets?
I use Next Vacay, VACA.
Another very popular one. Sign up for it and you can tell them where your airport is that you're flying out of, and they'll just start sending you all of the deals, and then you just wait for the Australia one to come up. So hopefully you guys can see us. Like she said, we'll be in ADHA, and that's I think we're going to be there supporting our buddy Matt too. He's going to be the first male president of ADHA. So
yay, Matthew!
Exciting stuff. Lots of stuff coming up. Hope to see you guys there. Let us know if you're going to be there.
And if you're going to RDH Under One Roof, I actually do have a code for you for $50 off full conference registration. Thank you, RDH Under One Roof. If you use the code ATOTH, ATOTH, then you will get $50 off your full conference registration.
Very nice.
So do it now. If you want to find us, you can go to ataleoftwohygienists.com. You can also reach out to us via email at ataleoftwohygienists@gmail.com. Andrew, despite his kicking and screaming, now has his own Andrew at ataleoftwohygienists.com. And I have Michelle at ataleoftwohygienists.com. You can find us on Instagram and also Facebook. You can listen to us on YouTube. please share, spread the word. I mean, everyone is tagging us. We appreciate that. But if you have a great episode or someone just really struck a chord with you, you learned some really good pearls, tell the world, tell everybody, because there's no reason for you to keep that info in. It's all about the patients getting better care. So tell your friends.
Everyone, have a great week. Thank you for being with us.
Yes. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.